Hey guys, my name is Linley from Crochet Creations by Linley. I'm a teacher by day and I crochet in all my free time. Do you want to add an adorable bow to your plushie to give it some sass? This video can help. Let's get started. So today the plushie that I'm going to be using is this adorable little bunny right here. And the plan is to make a little bow that's going to go over one of her ears off to the side. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so in order to start working on your bow, you're going to need a few supplies. The first thing that you're going to need is a crochet hook. This one in particular is my favorite crochet hook. It's a size H, which is equivalent to about a 5mm. You're going to need a plain old pair of scissors. You will need a darning needle. These ones that have the curved ends are my favorite just because it's a little easier to get underneath the stitches. You will need something to use as a stitch marker. These locking ones are my favorite. And then you're going to need some yarn that you are going to use for your bow color. So this one right here, I love. It's sparkly. This is from Premier Yarns. It's Parfait Chunky Glitz in the color Seaside Glitz. So it's just really pretty, has a lot of shimmer. So that's what we're going to be using for the bow. And then obviously you're also going to want to have your plushie handy that you're adding this bow to, because we're going to use this as a size reference. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my plushie right here and I'm going to figure out how big I want this bow to be. So for this plushie in particular, I want the bow to go over one of her ears. So I'm going to say I kind of want it about this size right here. So I'm going to keep that size in mind and I'm going to set this plushie off to the side over here. Then I'm going to take my crochet hook and my bow color, and the first thing that I need to do is to create a slip stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then just from experience, I would say that the amount of yarn that I'm going to need to create this bow, the correct length of it, is I'm going to start with a chain of 7. Now, if you have a plushie that's a little bigger or a little smaller, you're going to adjust this chain size based on how big you want the bow to be. So for example, if you have a larger plushie, instead of doing a chain of 7, you might want to do 15 instead. Or if you have something smaller, you might want to do 4. So it just kind of depends on the size that you're needing. So for this one, like I said, we're going to do 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right, so once I get to those 7 chains, I'm going to take the chains and just kind of hold it in my hands like this, and then I'm going to put it against my plushie just to make sure it's the correct size, the correct length, and I'm thinking that's probably going to be a pretty good size. So I'm going to add one more stitch, one more chain to make 8 total. Okay. Then I'm going to go back through and I'm going to go in the second chain from the hook, so right here, and I'm going to do one single crochet. Then I'm going to crochet all the way down the rest of the chain. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Once I get to the last chain, I always like to take the slip stitch and just kind of slide it up a little bit just to make sure it's nice and tight. So that is what your first row is going to look like. After I get done with that first row, I'm going to chain 1 and then I'm going to flip over my bow and I'm going to single crochet into each stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right, I'm going to keep doing that until I have the desired width of the bow And like I said, if you want it longer, then obviously you're going to do more than 7 chains. So for this one, I'm going to do one more round. So I'm going to chain 1, flip my work, and then I'm going to do 7 across because I want it a little thicker. 3, holy moly, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So once you get done with the last one, you can just kind of pinch in the middle just to make sure it kind of looks like a bow and it's the right width and length and that sort of thing. So for mine, it looks about how I'm wanting it to look. So after that, then we are going to put a stitch marker in the last stitch that we just did. So the next step in making this bow is we are going to go all the way around the outside of this bow and we are going to slip stitch into each stitch. So we're going to go into the same stitch that the last completed stitch was in, and we are going to slip stitch into that loosely. Loosely is going to be the key to making this bow. If you have your slip stitches too tight, your bow will start curling in. So we definitely don't want that to happen. So we're having to slip stitch loosely all the way around the edge. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to go through the next stitch, loosely slip stitch. Once we get to a corner, the corner you're actually going to slip stitch 3 times into the corner stitch. That'll give us the rounded edge that we're looking for. All right, and then once I'm done with that, then I'm going to go into the bottom stitches and I'm still slip stitching around. As you're going along, you can kind of pull the corners a little bit just to make sure that it's not curling up on you. It may just a little bit, and that's okay. You can stretch it out when you're done, but just keep on trucking. Once I get to the corner, I'm going to add 3 slip stitches there. Then around the sides, I'm going to slip stitch. In the corner again, I'm going to do 3. Oop, there we go. 1, 2, 3. And then around the top, I'm just going to slip stitch all the way across the top until I get back to my stitch marker. And then once I get to my stitch marker, I'm going to put 2 slip stitches in that one because we started off with 1 slip stitch in that corner. So we're just finishing off that corner. All right, so when we're done, it's going to look like this. There's going to be a border around the outside of your bow. The back side of it may be a little sloppy. There may be some loops and stuff that's showing, and those really don't matter too much because once you sew this onto your plushie, they're not going to be visible anyway. So after that, I'm going to take a really long tail. I would say this is probably like 18 inches or so. And I'm going to cut the tail and then fasten off just by pulling the yarn through that loop. So when we get all done, it's going to look like this. So once you fasten off your bow, you might notice that it looks a little weird right here. So how I fix that is I'm going to take this long tail and thread it through my darning needle. And then I'm going to skip 1 stitch and I'm going to insert my darning needle there, pull it through, and then the stitch that I skipped, I'm just going to go through the front loop of that one and pull through. And then that will create that corner look to make it more uniform with the rest of the bow. So after I have that completed, I'm going to take this tail and I'm just going to weave my darning needle in and out of the stitches all the way until I get to the middle. So now my tail, well, let me go one more, that one, there we go. All right, so now I have my tail in the middle of my bow at the top. What I'm going to do from here is I'm going to lightly squeeze in the middle of my bow, and I'm going to take this really long tail. I'm going to take the darning needle out of it, so I just have the yarn, and I'm literally just going to wrap tightly around this bow over and over and over again until it gets the shape of the bow. And you might have to kind of adjust it a little bit and make sure that it's looking okay. So we're going to keep going a couple more times. Okay. Once you've wrapped it quite a few times, this is a little tricky, but this is what keeps it all together. So after I have this, I'm going to keep it and hold it tight in my hand. And then I'm going to take the darning needle and thread that tail through my darning needle. And then on the back side, I'm going to take this darning needle and I'm going to put it under all of these loops that we've done. So you might have to kind of go back and forth and really get under there. Depending on how tight you wrapped it, it might be a little tricky, but do your best. So I'm going to pull that through. And then before I pull it all the way through, I still have a little bit of a loop left because I haven't pulled it all the way through yet. And I'm just going to put my needle through there and then pull tight. So that creates a knot in the back that's going to keep that bow in place. So once I'm done, I'm just kind of shape it a little bit to make sure it looks the way that I think that it needs to look. And then it's time to add it to your plushie. So when we are adding this bow to the plushie, you might notice that there are two different tails. We have the longer tail that we use to wrap around the whole bow, and then we also have the shorter tail that was used as the starting chains. So we're actually going to use both of these eventually, but the one we're going to work most with is the longer of the two. So I'm going to take this longer tail and thread it through my needle. And then I'm going to place this bow on my bunny where I want it. So I think that's probably a good place. And then you're just going to sew in and out on your plushie where you want this bow to be. So threaded it through there. I'm just going to go back and forth into random stitches just to make sure that it's really tight on there and that it's not going to get pulled off by a little kid or anything like that. So I'm just going to keep going back and forth. And there's really no rhyme nor reason to how we're sewing this on. I'm just sewing it on in the places that I feel like it needs the most support, and it needs to be attached in the right places. So I'm going to do it through a few stitches, and then I'm just going to poke it through the side and pull that tail through. Okay. And then this other tail that we have, I just basically use it as an extra support for keeping that bow in place. This one, like I said, isn't near as important as the other tail is. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to stick it through one of the close by stitches and pull it through the same hole as I pulled through that other tail. Then I'm going to tie a knot. And then personally, I like to use the back of my needle and just poke those tails through the stitches. All right, so once you get all done, you're going to just adjust your bow to make sure that nothing is looking weird and that everything is facing the right direction. And there you have it. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next crochet tutorial. Also be sure to check out the description where you can find links to all of my favorite products used in this video. Until next time, guys, keep crocheting.